I'll ask everyone to please be seated at this time. We're about to begin the services for Mrs. Schoen. I want to welcome everyone here at the chapel as well as the people that are attending the service remotely. Just a gentle reminder for those of you present here in the chapel, if you have a cell phone with you, please make sure it's in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. The interment will take place at Westlawn Cemetery, and we'll make sure that all the vehicles that are going to the cemetery are properly marked with an orange funeral sticker and a funeral flag, and make sure that your emergency flasher lights are on all the way to the cemetery. The Shiva will be observed following the interment with a minyan this evening at 7:30 p.m. at the Schoen Weiss residence in Evanston, 2623 Payne Street. That information is listed in your service folder, and for those of you viewing the service remotely, that information is on our website. Following the service here at the chapel, we'll ask the pallbearers to please step forward at the conclusion. Jonathan Schoen, Jeremy Schoen, Alan Karras, Pete Neclario, Lisa Pucher, and David Rubovitz. The services will be officiated by Rabbi Deborah Newman-Kamen, Am Yisrael.
At this time of loss, we turn to the words of our tradition, to Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echzar, benodesha yarbitzeni el menechot Yenachaleni, Nafshi Shovav Yancheni b'maglei tzedek l'man shemo, Gam ki alach b'geit tzal mavet lo irara ki ata imadi, Shivtecha umishantecha chema yenachamuni, Taroch livnei shulchan neged tzrarai, Deshanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya, Akto v'chesed yardafuni kol yamei chayai, V'shafti b'veit Adonai l'orach yamim. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God has me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, and guides me on the paths of righteousness. God revives my soul for the sake of glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of God forever. Adonai ma'on hayita lanu l'dor vador, v'terem hayrim yoladu v'techolel eretz v'tevel, u'me'olam ad olam ata el. O God, you have been our refuge from generation to generation. Before the mountains were born, before the earth was fashioned, from eternity to eternity, you are everlastingly God. Yet, humans, you crumble to dust. You say, return, O mortals. 1,000 years are in your sight, is a passing day and an hour of night. 70 our years may number, 80 years if granted the vigor. Laden with trouble and travail, life quickly passes away. Teach us, therefore, to number our days, that we may attain a heart of wisdom. Match days of sorrow with days of joy, equal to the years we have suffered. Then your servants will see your power, and your children will know your glory. We've come together today in loving tribute and farewell to Sari Schoen, beloved mother of Alan and Shelley and Gena, and grandmother to Hannah, Jonathan, and Jeremy. In our tradition, there are several, I would say, tasks or asks that are associated with the burial of a loved one. In our tradition, they are referred to as a mitzvah shel emet, a true mitzvah. And one of those actions is to eulogize your loved one. And so this afternoon, we have several family members, both of Sari's children and her I believe all 3 of her grandchildren, who will be speaking of her today.
Hi, I'm Gena. Bringing my brother in case I don't don't make it. So it sucks that I'm writing this and something that was so far off my radar just 6 weeks ago. So much could be said about Mom. 90 years provides so much time, a lot of time to live, a lot of time to do things, a lot of time to contribute. Mom took advantage of her 90 years and did and contributed a lot. Her main contribution was to put good into the world through her actions. Mom treated people kindly and with respect. I witnessed her always genuinely thanking people who assisted her, from the cashier at the Jewel when I was a kid to more recently Naomi, who came twice a week while Mom showered. Even up until her last day of consciousness, Mom thanked the nurse when he administered the pain medication and brought her another blanket. I was so struck by this and so aware of how Mom and our dad, through their actions, taught me and my brother the values of kindness, respect, and appreciation for other people. 90 years give children a lot of material to reflect on and share about. The stories about funny things their parents did, or the stories about the stories their parents told again and again, as if it was the first time. And my mom would say to me so often, "Did I ever tell you about my friend Marcia from when I was 5? Yes, Mom, you did. But today, I want to share about the way my mom lived her last few years and dealt with adversity. As many of you know, Mom had macular degeneration, which progressively worsened, and eventually it impacted her ability to drive, which she perceived as a loss of freedom. While the macular degeneration was a curse, it was the impetus for Mom to decide to move into Three Crowns. In the 3 years she lived in Three Crowns, Mom created a new life for herself. She made good friends, socialized regularly, and attended weekly programs, and continued to live independently in spite of her declining vision. She showed her strength and determination after breaking her hip, and instead of giving up, did her PT religiously and was able to walk with her walker. Mom stayed aware of what was happening in the world and what was happening in the lives of her children and grandchildren. And my favorite part of the last 3 years was Mom's continued love of reading. She was devastated when reading books became harder and harder due to the macular degeneration. Both my sister-in-law, Shelley, and I encouraged her to do audiobooks, but she continued to resist. She finally accepted that if she wanted to continue reading, she would need to give audiobooks a try. And once she did, there was no going back. She commented multiple times how much more she enjoyed listening to books than reading them. It was a blessing and a source of hours of entertainment and engagement for her. Over the last few years, my mom and I read many of the same books and discussed them. One of the saddest things for me are the books on my list that I won't be able to talk about with Mom. I am thankful to my mom and my dad for the values they taught me and my brother through their actions. I know I will continue to take more lessons from Mom's life as time passes, and I know I will miss her very much. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about my mom's life. But before I talk about my mom, I need to say a few thank yous. As many of you know, the last 6 weeks have been difficult for my mother and my family. We were truly blessed with the many wonderful people and friends who went above and beyond in making my mother comfortable and supporting Gena, I, and my entire family. I also need to give a shout out to her wonderful caregivers, especially the compassionate staff at Three Crowns, who helped her in skilled nursing wing. And finally, while our entire family rallied around my mom, a special mention to my wife, Shelley, who took great care of my mom and went to every doctor's appointment with her. And my sister, Gena, who flew in from Washington every couple of months these past 5 years and has been in Evanston for almost the entire past 6 weeks to attend to my mom's declining health. My family is truly blessed with so many wonderful friends in our lives, which all include all of you who are here today physically and in spirit. My mother was a humble person, and she really hated attention. I look around today and realize that she would probably be a bit embarrassed with all the people who are here just for her. In fact, during her last days, right before she lost consciousness, she basically told me to make the funeral simple, cancel the Shiva, and just go out and get something to eat. As you can see, and as many of you know, this will not be the first time that I will not follow her wishes. When the pandemic hit in 2000, my mother was living in the same condo that she occupied with my dad until his death in 2017. Alone with little access to friends and family, Gena brilliantly came up with the idea of having my mom write out our family history. While the pandemic was far from a blessing, my sister's idea was. Much of our history of our family is now documented, and I'd like to share a little bit of it today. My mom was born Sari Natalie Rubenstein on March 20th, 1935 in Chicago to the first and second generation family from Russia that had immigrated to the United States. She was supposed to be named Sarah, but my grandmother thought the name was too old-fashioned and used a more modern Americanized version, Sari. Her father was named Ellis, but everyone called him Al. Her mother was Esther, and her big sister was Charlotte, who was 6 years older. My mom and Charlotte were very close growing up and remained that way during their adult years. According to my mom, and I'm quoting her here, I was the baby of the family, and being the baby, I was somewhat spoiled and had a big mouth. Gena and I can attest, she didn't lose that big mouth throughout her life. However, there were times it served us well. In many ways, my mom was a product of her times, and her story was both a parallel to history and influenced by it. My mom was born during the Great Depression, and money was tight for her family. At times, they had several extended family living with them. She remembered these as happy times, but also noted that it influenced her lifelong approach to money, always trying to save, frugal in spending, and always concerned that she would never have enough. The outbreak of World War II had an impact on my mom's world outlook and affected her life. There was one passage in her chronicles that struck me. And I quote, December 7th, 1941 is a day I always remember. I was 6 years old. It was a Sunday and Charlotte and I went to the movies. When my dad picked us up, he was very upset and told us about the Pearl Harbor bombing. I didn't understand the whole thing, but soon enough we all did. That began a big change in our lives as there was rationing of food and gas and shortages of many people who were used to things that people were used to having. An even bigger impression on my mom's life was during World War II, where the stories had started filtering back about the fate of the European Jews, some of which were relatives to my mom's extended family. While some of these stories were in the news media, many of them were being relayed back to my mom's family from her uncle Danny, who was serving in the Army. And as is very proud in my family, he was serving in Patton's Third Army. He became an MP and had seen many of the Nazi concentration camps. These European stories shared by my mom's family, who were also serving, and the eventual release of the horrors of the Holocaust pushed my mom to a lifelong passion in ensuring that the history of the Holocaust was never forgotten. My mom's younger life in the 1940s was also impacted by the polio epidemic. I discovered the scar left on my mom when I was a tween. You see, my sister, father, and I loved to play Monopoly when we were younger, and the game took on epic proportions in our home. I remember once begging my mom to join the game, but she refused. She said she could never play Monopoly again since the one summer she had to stay inside from June to September due to the fear of polio, and the only thing to do was to play Monopoly. She says it still caused her anxiety to even see a Monopoly board. Even with the struggles going on in the world, it appears that these were happy years for her. She was surrounded by family and friends and doing things she loved, like listening to music and reading books, and was especially excited when her parents saved up enough to buy a 10-inch black and white TV that had 3 whole channels on it, and you can watch programming for 3 hours a day. My mom did something that many women did not do at that time. She went to college and finished with degrees in English and philosophy, 2 years at the University of Illinois, 2 years at Roosevelt University. After college, she took a job at the advertising company called Katz Agency. She loved working downtown at the Prudential Building, which at the time was the tallest building in Chicago. In her words, she had quite the social life, and she loved to travel, going to New York, Washington, D.C., and Florida. She also enjoyed working on political campaigns and volunteered for Adlai Stevenson on both of his failed campaigns for president. One of the most exciting things that happened to my mom is that she won a car in a charity raffle with a 25-cent ticket. She must have told my sister and I that story 100 times, and just last week, while she was so sick and in so much pain, it was one of the few times she smiled as she retold us that story again of winning that car and then trading it in for a 1958 Chevy Impala convertible. I'm telling you this, and I think she told us that story because she wanted you all to know just how hip she was. While we're here to remember my mom today, it's hard not to talk about her without remembering my dad, Jack. They met in 1957 at the Ner Talmud Anshe Emet Jewish Bowling League. Yes, they had Jewish bowling leagues in the 50s. They were married in 1959 and moved to Rogers Park. Through 58 years of mostly good times, they supported each other and were inseparable. A great lesson for me was you can have a disagreement with your spouse and even a nasty argument, but a relationship is the most important point. That was really it. My mom and dad loved each other, really quite simple. My sister and I were born in 1961 and 63, and my mom and dad couldn't have been happier. Relocating to Skokie, they were involved parents, encouraging my sister and I to participate in every activity the school had to offer. My mom was also a very fierce advocate for Gena and I. She set high expectations and would fight anyone that got in the way of those expectations. At one point, when I was struggling in elementary school, a teacher told my mom that I'd probably never go to college. I was not smart enough. Well, the legend has it that my mom, in no uncertain terms, told that third grade teacher that it was a bit too early to make that determination, and maybe if she was just a bit better teacher, I would have a chance. Let's just say my situation with that teacher improved drastically after that encounter. It was around this time that my mom suffered two losses relatively close together that really impacted the rest of her life. First, her beloved father died at the age of 58, and then 7 years later, her sister Charlotte, her closest friend, confidant, and idol, died at 45 after a long bout with breast cancer. Not only did this devastate my mom emotionally, but she became the caretaker for her own mother, who never recovered from these. My mother, even ever the loyal daughter, never shied away from this responsibility, even though it had a negative impact on her life. One of the greatest things my mom and dad did for my sister and I was establishing a stable and supportive home environment. In fact, the biggest criticism that Gena and I had was that our family was boring. There were so many things I remember, but one of my favorites was that we were an ice cream family. My mom and dad loved ice cream, and Gena and I were a convenient excuse to head out and to all the ice cream shops in the world with my mom saying, you know, we need to check those out. My mom was also a role model for us in work ethic. She restarted her career when we were older and had a wonderful 30-year stint at the Wilmette Park District. She juggled a lot during those years, a career, 2 teenage children, and caring for her mother. Frankly, these were not easy times for my mom, especially caring for her mother, who demanded a lot of attention. But she juggled it all. The years after my mom retired were, by her own admission, some of the best years of her life. She basically returned to things she loved from earlier years. First, there was the travel. She pushed and prodded my reluctant dad to hit the road, and they did. Flying, cruising, riverboating, and visiting much of the world. Second, there was the volunteering. She became a docent at the Illinois Holocaust Museum, which was no easy task. She had to study and take tests, ensuring that she could accurately explain the history and horrors of the time. She once told me that this was important work for her to do, and she felt obligated to perform it, having grown up during that time. But it was not the travel or the volunteering that was at the top of the list. It was her family. After pushing me to go to college so I could have a good career, and you would think that that would be what she was most proud of. And I can tell you that it was not even close. The best thing that I ever did, according to my mom, was marry Shelley. My mom adored Shelley. And then a great thing happened. We did for my mom. we gave her grandchildren. A story that my friends like to tell is that 5 hours after Hannah was born, my mom was already bragging to them how smart she was. And it didn't stop there because, according to my mom, Hannah, Jonathan, and Jeremy were smart, good-looking, talented, athletic. But the most important thing to her was that they were kind. It was also at this time my sister married her husband, Rik, which thrilled my mom to no end. These were good times for my mom and dad. She excelled at being a grandmother by taking my kids to her house all the time, babysitting, going to every soccer game, baseball game, dance recital, plays that my kids were in. She also visited my sister and Rik in Washington, and she loved joining my family and my friends for Jewish and secular holidays. For her, it was a return to the close family she enjoyed as a child, traveling, finding fulfillment at her docent work. Frankly, these were probably the best years of my mom's life. She seemed happy and fulfilled, which is why it was so painful when it ended with my father's sickness starting in 2015 and his death in 2017. As usual, she stepped up, went to every chemo appointment and hospitalization, and really took care of my dad. But it also ended the life that she so loved, traveling, volunteering, and being with my father. The years following my dad's death were very difficult. She missed him terribly. And even a more cruel blow happened when the pandemic cut her off from her friends and family, especially her beloved grandchildren. While this may seem like the end of the story, there is an addendum. After living alone for about 5 years, suffering through the pandemic, Gena, Shelley, and I dragged her, literally kicking and screaming, to the Three Crowns Independent Living Facility. There she met and bonded with several new friends, and even reconnected with an old high school friend that she hadn't seen for 65 years. To her credit, she put herself out there, attending lectures on the current events and history, joining a book club, and her favorite, going to Shabbat dinners on Friday nights. My mom could be stubborn and never liked to admit that she was wrong, which is why I was thrilled when she admitted to me 6 months ago that we did the right thing by moving her into Three Crowns. It might seem a little odd to hear me say that I'm regretful that my 90-year-old mom passed when she did. I really thought she had a few more good years left in her. She celebrated her 90th birthday surrounded by family and her new friends and had a wonderful time and generally seemed happy. Mother's Day weekend, which was filled with everything that made my mom happy for her entire life. My sister was in from Washington. We had brunch on Mother's Day and Mother's Day dinner at my house with her grandsons, where she even drank wine. And then the very next day, it all started to come to an end with a 6-week period which started with a fall and then a brutal infection that ultimately took her life. The last 6 weeks have been tough, lots of pain and confusion. During this time, we did have a few sweet and funny moments with her reminiscing, telling us stories about people, or when she told us to cancel the Shiva. What made me a bit happy was right before my mom slipped into unconsciousness for the last time, she said she was hungry. My sister Shelley and I were thrilled because she had not eaten for days. She asked for her 2 favorite things, chicken soup and chocolate ice cream. The chicken soup was too difficult to eat, but I was able to feed her a few spoons of the chocolate ice cream right before she fell unconscious. I really hope she enjoyed it. In many ways, I'm totally different than my mom, but in many ways, I'm very much like her. I share in her ideals of love of family and friends, being the most important thing in our lives. I know that my mom would be thrilled that you're all here today. We will miss my mom a lot. Thank you all for being here. We're honored and humbled by all your support.
In this In this speech, I wanted to share one thing that I came to truly admire about my grandma Sari, which is that she prioritized the things in life that were most important to her. My siblings and I often joked that if you entered a conversation with grandma for more than 10 minutes, you were almost guaranteed to hear about the Holocaust. While bringing up one of the most tragic events in human history at the Thanksgiving dinner table wasn't always a massive mood lifter, I came to realize that Sari talked so extensively about the Holocaust because she was very passionate about it. Her grandparents were Lithuanian Russian Jews, and she had relatives that fought in World War II, also volunteering in the Holocaust Museum for over 15 years. The Holocaust was important to her, and it was important for her to talk about it. On a more positive note, Grandma was even more passionate about her family. After his passing, she kept my grandfather Papa in our thoughts with funny stories and memories of their long and happy marriage. I remember visiting Grandma just under a year ago, right before I went off to college, and joking that my dad wasn't going to be happy that I was going to the University of Wisconsin instead of Indiana like he and my brother had. At that moment, Grandma became very serious and lectured me about how my dad loved me very much no matter where I went to school. I knew this, of course, but it was admirable to see how passionate she was about painting my dad in a positive light. She did the same with my Aunt Gena, raving about her kindness and intelligence whenever she had the chance. Their strong relationship was reflected by how often my Aunt Gena took the trip from D.C. to visit and stay with my grandma. Lastly, my grandma loved my sister, my brother, and I with all of her heart and was not afraid to show it. She would brag about my sister's creativity and talent, rave about my brother's intelligence and work ethic, and she often referred to me as a Renaissance man, a nickname that 12-year-old me didn't truly understand, but one I've come to take pride in. Grandma was always more invested in her family's lives than her own, which is the biggest compliment she could give to us. For all that she was, an amazing daughter, wife, mother, volunteer, protester, worker, friend, and to me a grandmother, I will always love and admire Sari.
Mine's just a short thing. One of the things I appreciate the most about my grandmother is that she showed me what unconditional love and affection was at a young age. When I was really young, I used to spend weekends and afternoons at her house. We used to color, play circus, laugh, dance, eat chicken nuggets, and go to the park. I don't remember a lot of these things in much detail, but I remember how that made me feel. As I've grown up, I remember how much my grandmother's constant support and love shaped me into who I am today. She came to all of my plays, took me out to lunch and dinners whenever she got the chance, and sat and talked politics with me at the dinner table when everyone else was sick of me complaining about it. Even now, my grandmother loved to brag about me moving to LA and doing entertainment as a career. And when we would call, she would go on and on about how proud she was of me. I don't think I would be the person I am today without her, because it's easy to make jokes, laugh, be confident, take risks, and make brave decisions when you feel that kind of love and support from such a young age. And I attribute that a lot to my grandmother being there for me in every step of the way. I will miss her very much. She will always be with me, and I hope I can continue to make her proud.
Yeah, just looking at my grandma's life from a person-to-person perspective instead of a grandson, I think one thing that really stood out was how much she demanded respect. And she was by no means intimidating or aggressive to talk to at all, but she was someone you could tell very much cared about the things she cared about and didn't really care about anything else. She didn't really have a lot of keeping up with the Joneses in her. It was just all about her family and her religion, and I think that's something that people just can all relate to and respect, and that's something that I'll try and take forward from her passing.
I think I can speak on behalf of all of us that when we probably don't often, but think about what would the end of our lives look like? What would we want people to say about us? What would be the measure of a good and meaningful life? And I think to hear 2 children and 3 grandchildren get up and speak so beautifully, so lovingly what more could you really want in your life than that kind of love and respect? There is an ancient proverb that comes from the Bible, and some of you may be familiar with it, but I think when you hear me read it in just a moment, and you think of Sari, you'll think about how much this ancient proverb actually describes her and her life. Eshet chayil miyimsa v'rachok mipinim michra, batach balev ba'ala v'shalal al yakzar. A woman of valor who can find. Her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and nothing shall he lack. She renders him good and not evil all the days of her life. She opens her hands to the needy and extends her hands to the poor. She is robed in strength and dignity and cheerfully faces whatever may come. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She tends to the affairs of her household and eats not the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Place before her the fruit of her hands, and wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. I ask you now to please rise for the Almalei Rachamim prayer. This is the prayer that concludes the service, and in it we ask that our loved one be bound up in the bonds of life, and of course she is bound up in the bonds of life through your love and loyalty to her. Almalei Rachamim Shochein B'meromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'magalot Kedushim U'Taharim Kezuhir Harikim Etzirim Et Nishmat Shahalcha La'olama Began Eden Tehei Menuchata Ana Ba'al Harachamim Hesireher Baseter Kenafechel Olamim Utsur B'tzur Chaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachlata V'Tanuch B'Shalom HaMishkava V'Nomar Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Sari Schoen, who has gone to her eternal home. God of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. God is her portion. May she rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen.